Hi, everyone. Welcome to our panel about the race to space. My name is Loren Grush. I'm a space reporter for Bloomberg. Previously was a reporter at The Verge for 7 years. One of the first words spoken on the surface of the moon was Houston, which I like to brag about all the time. But especially now, as the commercial space industry is just blossoming in recent years, Texas is a really big part of that narrative. And I think we have a great panel here to discuss how Texas is part of the space revolution. So I was wondering if you guys could go one by one and just say who you are and what you do and how you're involved with Texas in space.
Thanks so much. My name is Jana Spruce, and I am the Vice President of Spacecraft at Firefly Aerospace. At Firefly, we launch, land, and orbit our vehicles that are all built and designed here in Texas. We have facilities in Cedar Park, Texas, which is just north of Austin. And I've been in Texas here for a couple years and really love the work ethic, there is quite a space presence with JSC and now quite a bit coming into the Austin area as well. So it's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Doug?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Douglas Terrier. I'm the Associate Director for Strategy at Johnson Space Center. And what that means is my role is primarily to ensure that Johnson Space Center, NASA, our regional partners across the state and industry, academia, that Texas remains the center, the nexus of human exploration for the decades to come. We're looking at one of the most exciting periods in human history as humanity ventures out from Earth into sustained presence in the moon and Mars and beyond. And we want to ensure that the next words spoken from the surface of Mars will refer to Texas, that we remain and provide that opportunity.
My name is Jim Bridenstine. I am most recently, I was the NASA administrator. A lot of people were like, what does that mean? Well, I was at the helm of NASA, and so I've been interviewed by Loren Grush many times. And Doug was my chief technologist when I was at NASA, so that was fantastic. But before I was the NASA administrator, I was a member of the House of Representatives. Please, I know this can be tough for this audience to hear, but I represented Oklahoma and Washington, D.C.
Not a good weekend.
I know,
to admit that.
yeah, the Texas OU weekend is not a good time to make that announcement. But I'll tell you, I grew up in Arlington, Texas. I went to Martin High School. I actually went to Rice University in Houston, Texas. But I married a girl who was born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And when I left the Navy, I was a Navy pilot for 9 years. When we left the Navy, we went back to Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where we wanted to raise our family. And I ran for Congress in that area. But I'll tell you, I'm probably split between Texas and Oklahoma, but it's good to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Hi, everyone. My name is Helen Ramirez. I'm the city manager for the city of Brownsville, Texas. A very great opportunity right now with SpaceX and everything they're doing in our Texas coast. They also occupy about 100,000 square feet at our Brownsville South Padre Island airport. We're close to South Padre Island. It's a time of innovation and growth. The Musk Foundation actually gave us $10 million towards our schools for science programs and also to renovate our downtown. We have one of the most historic cities, downtowns in the state of Texas. So we're just really excited to see that innovation and growth and technology that is our community. About 98% of Starship is built with local workforce. 10% of that is probably from California, which is the Raptor engine that gets tested in McGregor and then assembled in Brownsville, Cameron County. So we're just really excited. It's a great time. I think it's also a time of change, transformative change with regard to new space and aerospace in general. Having been grown, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. Don't hold it against me. But, the Northrop Grummons, Raytheons, they were a big part of us growing up. But many of those cool rockets were behind hangars, right? We didn't really know what was going on. We weren't allowed. I was even in the planning department for the city of Hawthorne, and I didn't even know, don't ask any questions, right? We're just give me my permit. But really being able to see a Starship in real life in its raw sense is a a whole different way to experience for our youth. I have 3 kids, 13, 11, and 9, and really it is transforming a whole generation, right? You don't have to ask permission to SpaceX to see the rocket. It's on a public road, highway, that dead ends into State Beach. That's how amazing where we're living. So really I'm so glad Firefly is so successful, and SpaceX and all the other companies that are coming along with this industry and really disrupting even where mission control is, right?
All right, Jim, I'd love to start with you. Obviously, when you were leading the space agency, you were really critical in efforts to make more public-private partnerships with the booming commercial space industry. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how Texas played a large role in those efforts and how big of a deal it was to have companies in the state.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea was we wanted to, as much as possible, make sure that we were utilizing the innovation that comes from the commercial industry. And of course, the programs that we created were in fact public-private partnerships. The goal was we're not going to purchase, own, and operate hardware. Whether we're going to space, we're gonna buy the rocket launch as a service. If we're getting data from space, we want to buy the data, not necessarily own and operate the satellite. And if we're going to land on the moon, we want to buy the service from a private company to land on the moon, whether it's with robots or with humans. But a lot of great companies in Texas, like Firefly, bid on a lot of our projects. And that's really where the innovation happens, in those small, innovative companies that, they think differently than we do at NASA. At NASA, we certify every subcomponent, we certify every component to the nth degree, and by the time it's ready to launch, it will be flawless, and that's fantastic. But a lot of these innovative companies, they're trying new things, not knowing if it's going to work, but if it does, fantastic. If it doesn't, they throw it away and they'll try something different. And it's a very different way of development, but we see that coming out of Texas with these small, innovative companies. The Johnson Space Center was a great partner. Obviously, they're the biggest center that NASA has down in Houston, but they're in charge of what will be commercial LEO destinations, the future commercial space stations to replace the International Space Station. That's a big program that they're going to be at the helm of. And a lot of those companies are looking to Johnson for leadership and guidance on, how do we make sure that we're being innovative, but at the same time being safe. So Texas has been a key partner with the government. And it's also true, like when the state of Texas comes out and they say, hey, we're going to have, a $350 million closing fund for space. Again, NASA doesn't want to purchase, own, and operate hardware. We need partners. And those partners they're gathering private capital, but it's also true that states and even municipalities are stepping up to be partners with NASA in ways that we would never see before. So these are all very important capabilities that are going to be transformational for our country.
And Doug, I want to talk to you now because, as we just listened to, obviously a big transformation is happening within NASA right now as it evolves into more of a customer. What is your role in helping to foster the commercial space industry while going through this change at NASA?
Yeah, great question. So many of you recognize NASA as, our role of exploration, NASA leading the science and technology going out to the moon, out into the solar system. But NASA actually has 2 roles. The first is to push those boundaries of science and push humanity out into, onto the solar system at the leading edge. But as Jim alluded to, the second role, which is obviously a natural role of the government, is to ensure that we do that. We architect those systems in a way that provides a really fertile ground for commercial opportunity, economic, and strategic success in our wake, right? So we're very conscious. Jim, under his tenure, put together the Artemis program, which we are pursuing now to bring humans back sustainably to the moon for long duration stay and living and working on the moon, as opposed to just exploring for short term, and eventually to have commercial opportunities first in low lunar orbit, which we're pursuing today, then having that also as NASA pushes the leading edge out in exploration. We want to have that sort of wave of commercial activity, commercial opportunities progress from low Earth orbit to the moon and eventually on out into space. So fundamentally, my role is to help shape the architecture of those systems. And Johnson Space Center, specifically in Houston, as many of you know, we are primarily concerned with human exploration as opposed to the robotics and aviation and other things NASA does. So our role is to ensure that we are harnessing this incredible infusion of innovation and private sector capital that is unprecedented, right? In the past, this has been mostly the domain of very large government agencies with a few countries around the world. Under Artemis, we are developing partners with emerging spacefaring countries, but more importantly, we're trying to really partner with all the emerging, both legacy and new space innovative companies and enable their success, which will fuel NASA's further progress. So that's an essential part of how we structure our strategy.
Great. And Jana, I'm wondering if you can talk about, why Firefly settled on its location in Texas, and how has it been as a host state for you guys as you partner with NASA? Maybe detail some of your partnerships with NASA as well.
Sure. We started out in Texas, so Firefly was actually born and raised in Texas, if you will, and the facilities that we have really enable us to build. We're very vertically integrated. We can build most of the rocket at what we call our rocket ranch. We've got 200 acres north of Austin where we test rocket engines, we test rocket stages, we have a very large machine shop, we do welding, we do composites layup. All of that happens right here in Texas. So at that rocket ranch, really raw materials come in and rockets and spacecraft parts go out. We also have a facility in Cedar Park, Texas, which is where we assemble and test our lunar landers. So we have 2 contracts for lunar landers right now with NASA, and actually it is a service. So NASA is not buying a lunar lander, they're buying a ride, which is really cool. We have, on our first mission, we have 10 different NASA payloads that are all going to do different scientific experiments. And our second mission that we've kicked off this year is going to the far side of the moon, where we will be taking a telescope, a radio frequency telescope that's going to look further into the past than humans have ever been able to do before, because it is on that far side of the moon where it's shielded from the Earth. So we're really opening up a lot of the science capabilities that will continue to enable commercial things to go to the moon. So I think as we see more and more of these missions become successful, we'll see the commercial market continue to pick up. We have a lot of interest right now. We need to see more of us as a community get to the moon safely.
Well, speaking of interest, I was going to say, Helen, it's probably got to be an amazing time to be a city manager at Brownsville right now with the influx of SpaceX and all it's doing down there at Starbase. I'm wondering if you can talk about what your relationship is like, the city with SpaceX, and how has the city evolved as Starbase has continued to grow and more testing happens down at Boca Chica.
Oh, well, it's a very good relationship that we've had to foster. I came in as a deputy city manager in 2019. We call each other all the time Cameron County. We are the largest city, or in the county seat of Cameron County. It's such a great relationship that Elon actually came to a 45,000 square foot junky warehouse that we had at the airport and said, "This is where I want to put some of my operations." And infuse $1.2 million in that building, and it's just a really amazing to see that, and also thinking of quality of life. We want employees to be happy. We talked about Firefly, about having their employees be happy. The $10 million, or some of it went to schools, but some of it went to downtown revitalization. We have one of the most historic cities in the state of Texas, and so what we did, a lot of people don't want to live in detached single-family homes. They want to live in cool lofts downtown and be able to bar hop and go to authentic restaurants. So there's been a renaissance in our downtown of events, of authentic. I invite you all to come, authentic restaurants, and really we have a wonderful zoo. It's not only SpaceX employees, but it's their families and also our kids. Our kids, a lot of our ISDs have been bused to Starbase. Thousands of kids have gone to see and witness it. So it's a really, sometimes I lease them out our community pool. It's those types of relationships, families, and one of the pain points was direct flights to Los Angeles from Brownsville. We partnered with the Velo airline, a Houston-based airline. We are the first city that they're flying out of from Texas, and they're going from Brownsville, direct flights to Orlando, to Vegas, and to Burbank, Hollywood. So it's just, we keep helping one another, and they're great community partners for us.
Great. So obviously, we're very interested in Texas here and bringing more Texans into the space industry. So this is a question for all of you. Maybe we can go down the line. What kind of skills are you looking for in new recruits? Are there other industries that you facilitate becoming into the space industry? What can you tell us about who is the right fit for companies and NASA?
Yeah, great question. I would say the skills that we're primarily looking for are, hands-on skills for one. So students who are out there listening, take a shop class, build something in your garage. That is all very helpful experience that we look for in our hiring process. We need welders, we need technicians, we need software programmers. We need people who can help us graphically tell our story in a proposal. So it's a wide variety of skills that we need, and I think the most important common thread there is we need people who have a strong work ethic. They're passionate about what they do, and they bring that creativity and that excitement to work every day.
Yeah, so as we look at, making Texas the hub of human exploration, we really need to have the facilities, the infrastructure, the processes that enable public-private partnerships, which are kind of new, and developing the international collaboration capabilities, but probably premier is to grow the workforce of the future that we need, particularly with the incredible growth of private sector opportunities from all Brownsville and Waco, all the way out to Midland Spaceport, and indeed even Oklahoma Spaceport. There's a whole community around us that we can rally, but we need to feed that with a pipeline of obviously STEM students, many of the skills that we would expect, science, technology, engineering, etc. But I think you're exactly right. We are now in the business of not just managing programs, but building vehicles here in Texas. So it really is a hand-on touch labor is something we need to feed, which makes our partnerships go beyond the traditional universities, four-year degrees, into the community colleges, vocational programs, etc. And then the other thing I want to say is that we tend to focus entirely, exclusively on the science, but there is a whole host of skills that we need. Space law, for example, is something people don't talk about, but we're trying to figure out how that works as we have dozens of new countries and private sector, wild west in space. So that's one example, but I could go across, all the different business models we need to work in this entrepreneurial environment. So I want to make sure we tell our students we need everyone's help to enable this to be successful.
So, Loren, when you think about the state of Texas attracting talent, growing business, and I think about this from an Oklahoma perspective as a former member of Congress from Oklahoma, I think what you've got to do is you have to do things that are really exciting and achieve things that are stunning. And I want to talk for a second about what Firefly Aerospace has done just recently. Imagine a country that's not friendly to the United States puts something into orbit that very well could be nefarious. We don't know that it is, but we have no room to miscalculate, because if you miscalculate, things can escalate very quickly in space. So we got to look at it. We got to look at it quickly. So what Firefly is able to do, which no company's ever been able to do before, is within 24 hours notice, they're able to get a satellite to a very specific orbit and a very specific point within that orbit at a very specific time, so that they can get eyes on, or their payload could get eyes on to what could be, probably not, but could be a nefarious target. That's a really cool capability. It gets people excited about what the future is in space. Can you launch within 24 hours? And by the way, do it at a cost point that's under what anybody can do, even with a couple of months worth of notice. That's a stunning achievement that Firefly has. I will also tell you they're building spacecraft and they're building landers for the moon. I mean, if you want to do something exciting, build something that lands on the moon and go tell your friends, hey, here's what I did. I just built something that landed on the moon. These are the types of stunning achievements that get young people inspired to do science, technology, engineering, and math. And I also want to say this, Jana is very humble. She at Firefly, she's two people to my right, just so that you guys want to know. She is the vice president of spacecraft at Firefly Aerospace. That's got to be one of the coolest jobs of anybody she went to college with. And I'm sure when they have reunions, people are like, wow, that's really amazing. And so if you're interested in this type of work, look at her resume. That's how you get there. It's pretty impressive.
Thanks, Jim.
Wow. What I want to add to that is, if you look at SpaceX's website, it's not all about engineers. They need finance people, human resources people. They need to run a company, right? There are about 2,000 employees there already and growing. So security, so if you have a passion for being multiplanetary or just being in a place where cool things are made, just give it a chance, right? What's unique is that you don't have to have a 4-year college degree to get there. Our Texas Southmost College, they needed an orbital welding course, and so they created it for them. That's the type of innovation that you have in South Texas. The University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, many of their students are interns there, right? And so this whole UT system that we have, we want people to come home because there's not enough people to fill those jobs. Right? We had a 3,000 job fair. We call it Careers and Coffee because you got to have coffee when you're looking for a job. And there was 50 companies. SpaceX was there. I don't know anywhere else in the world where you can actually physically, have an interview face-to-face with SpaceX or with big companies. So we really wanted to make it very inviting. We had parents bring their high school kids, saying there's jobs in Brownsville. You don't have to leave to Houston, Dallas. And also many of our companies, because we talked about there's a parallel with oil and gas industry, they're actually coming home, right? Which makes our community more vibrant, more better. And so what I would say, challenge you, sometimes it's not always that path that you think. You can get there following a resume, or you also get there because you have a passion to be there, right? And so I challenge your passion and challenge your thinking and challenge yourself every day. Thank you.
So let's look to the future. We only have a few minutes left, so I want to give all of you a chance to wrap this up. But we talked about the investment that Texas has put into space. I'm curious, what do you all think is the future for this industry, and where would you like to see investments being placed, whether that be in the state of Texas or just the country in general?
Yeah, I think we definitely are excited about building more infrastructure here in Texas. And it takes a lot to put a lander on the moon or to launch a rocket. And while a company like Firefly can do that for maybe a lot less than NASA could, it still requires quite a bit of investment. And we do need the help of our local communities and our state in ways to help us build out that infrastructure. And there's a lot of things that we can do that'll benefit not only the space industry, but also, say, oil and gas and others who are here looking to grow. So we're very excited about the Texas Space Commission that's coming soon, and what that will mean for companies like ours, and as well as the whole space ecosystem in Texas.
Yeah, so many people may not realize that the space industry today is valued about $400 billion, and it's easily one of the fastest growing sectors of any business sector, and it's important commercially. It's probably more importantly strategically, and our role in Texas of leading the charge for the United States to dominate that and lead that effort is super important. We take that very seriously at Johnson Space Center. The example you gave of the Texas Space Commission is a great example where that $350-400 million appropriated is going to build a exploration park, a research campus adjacent to JSC, so we can again be that nexus and attract the community to collaborate, and the community there. I think making more investments like that directly to our private sector businesses to incentivize them both by the state, federal, that we're making from NASA's point of, with our contracts. We will continue to do that to incentivize and foster the growth of this industry.
I think the future of space is largely going to be private companies operating in space. The government will be a customer. For some markets, the government will be a tenant customer, the largest customer. But these private companies are going to be competing against each other on cost, on innovation. They're going to be driving down costs. They're going to be increasing access to space, fundamentally transforming how we live and work on a daily basis. And the U.S. government will be one of many customers, which I think is a bright future. I would also say we should not dismiss humans in space, especially in low Earth orbit, where we can take advantage of microgravity, where we are transforming how we do medicine. We're creating immunizations. We're creating, crystals for pharmaceuticals that are transforming how we do medicine. We're doing all kinds of biological sciences to create tissue for humans. In fact, we could take your own skin cells, Loren. We could turn your skin cells into stem cells, and then we can create organs that are not matched to you. They are, in fact, you for regenerative medicine. These are things we're proving on the International Space Station right now. The future is going to be commercial space stations where there's a thriving economy in low Earth orbit, and that thriving economy will include humans. So the future is very bright in space. The government will play a role, but it's going to be state governments, municipalities as well, and a whole lot of private sector investment.
I would say we always need more investment. Space Coast Florida is light years ahead of us, which means that that puts a lot of burden coming from a local government, is that our economic development corporations have a lot of the burden of incentives on them. So with the Space Commission and what was approved, yes, that's a step in the right direction, but there's also special legislation that we can include that Florida has that we do not have with regard to incentivizing manufacturing buildings. We're barely getting TxDOT to help us widen an important road that employees need. Then the employees call me and say, can't you synchronize Boca Chica, which is a boulevard that goes to that? So there's a lot of incentives that need to be made with regard to transportation to get employees in and out, to incentivize from an economic development, workforce development, training. Why aren't we should be incentivizing more? I know Texas Workforce Commission does that, but even on a local level, right? And how do we encourage R&D? We know if we're going to iterate, then there's going to be some of that grant money is not going to go anywhere, right? There's no way to claw back because we iterated, it didn't go the way we did, but it didn't work. So where's the R&D money? I think there has to be a lot more given to our universities and small businesses to be able to try again, right? And so that's part of, I think, the transformation. We need to do more as a state, as a country, and then also help local government, economic development corporations in cities such as Brownsville and Cedar Park just do more because we are limited, right? So anyway, our future is bright. I also think that's what's interesting is that SpaceX is looking at point-to-point travel, so going from Brownsville to Asia or to Europe within an hour. So there's other types of travel that is not necessarily to the moon and Mars, but it's also just between our country, right, and our world. So it's a very exciting time to be alive, and I invite you all to visit us.
Yeah, I will reiterate that as well. As a space journalist, I am busier than ever, and I would say that it's just there's no better time to be in the space business right now, and covering it really is a dream. And so thank you so much to my panelists here for conveying that message, and I look forward to covering you guys in the space industry someday. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.